Oh, look to the right. There's a grenade. Oh. All right, hold on. I'm coming over. I'll be right there.
Okay.
GG.
That was some GRAW.
We totally shot things in the face.
In the face. I shot them with grenades.
And I shot them with a gun. It's very similar to the first GRAW, which makes sense. I mean, the first GRAW only came out a year ago.
Right.
It's not even a year ago.
Yeah, they didn't fuck with anything that people love.
And they fixed some things that people didn't like.
Exactly. You can't
what more can you ask for?
Well, you know.
You could ask for a whole new game.
Yeah, you can.
But you can't ask for that in 1 year. So.
Yeah.
In the first game, the graphics in single player were much better than the graphics in multiplayer, and in this game, the single player and the multiplayer look very similar in terms of their look and feel, which is nice, though you still don't have the cover system that is in the single player game in multiplayer.
Yeah.
There's no change there, and that's kind of weird. The first game, I think, shipped with something like 10 maps, and this one has 18, and 8 of them are bigger and can have like objective-based games on them, and the other 10 are just for multiplayer, like skirmishes, team-based things, and those are good too. And the nice thing is that they all do look good and different and big and pretty.
And they have different, like, the Hydra Dam.
Yeah.
You know, is this beautiful, like, sniper-loving level.
Yeah, it is.
Like, and there are so many places where you can just, you know, aim and snipe from it. If you want to create a game on the Hydra Dam where it's just like tons dudes and we're all going for the same spot, like we played this King of the Hill match, and it was insane. It was almost like Halo, where we're just all like coming into the same spot and just exploding everything we can. And you know, if you want that kind of game, you can make that kind of game in GRAW.
The cross-comm, instead of just having it appear in a tiny window at the top of your screen, which it does anyway, you can also have it like take up your whole vision by holding down the RB button.
Which I have to admit, like, the whole drone thing, and especially in the multiplayer, I found very confusing.
Really?
When I was playing GRAW. Like, especially because I wasn't ever sure who was controlling the drone.
Yeah, because anyone can do it.
And it's like this, and I play in standard def.
Yeah.
So it's this tiny little screen in the corner. But now with the first person view, I can absolutely see right away, standard def and everything.
I don't think it made that. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. In fact, I think
admit that I'm probably retarded.
I think it leaves you open to attack.
Yeah, it leaves you just as open as switching to the map did.
Right.
But it felt quicker.
I like the fact that it's there, especially in single player. I think it's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. With your cross-comm, you can look at what your buddies are looking at.
Yeah, and that I found to be a nice addition, but one that I didn't find to be that useful. But again, we only played for about 2 hours yesterday, although we were playing with a good number of people, so it was a pretty good idea of what the game is actually going to be like when we get it. On the Crashdown map, there was this really cool objective-based mode that we played where one team had to go plant charges on several different areas, another team had to defend those zones. But then once you get all the charges placed, which is, a very big task in its own right, you also have to extract. You have to get your entire team back to a completely different side of the map so that they can be picked up by choppers. And it's really nice that in the multiplayer mode, 2 choppers are flying overhead, circling around, and they provide cover support for your team as they're trying to extract. So it does add this kind of single player vibe to the multiplayer game that something like GRAW, it sort of had that, but it just feels much more polished this time around. The multiplayer experience is really solid, I think.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any mic problems.
None.
Everything seemed to be working very well, and that's positive. I think, like I said at the beginning, it's like the first game, but just seems more polished. The graphics are better. I like the maps better than the maps that shipped with the first game. They did mention that there's going to be clan support, which is very important. Anyone who's been watching our show lately knows that we care a lot about getting team matchmaking in our multiplayer Xbox Live games. Right. And it looks like we are a team, and we want to play together. It wasn't fully implemented yet, so we haven't actually had a chance to play with it.
Don't know if it's totally working, but I guess Luke has gotten Microsoft to say, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
As it is in Halo 2 where it's done correctly.
Right.
But you have to build it.
Right.
So
they're building it.
And I hope it works.
So do I.
It's got a lot more competition now than GRAW did.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of people out there who still love GRAW and are super psyched about this.
Sure. Personally, I'm more interested in the single player game, and I hope they've done some work to polish the AI, which I thought this squad AI in that game, in the first game, was my least favorite thing about it.
Yeah, especially after playing Rainbow Six.
Especially after playing something like Rainbow Six. That's my favorite part of that's my favorite part of the GRAW experience, so I am looking forward to checking it out.
See, I think you're unique in that. I think a lot of people, their favorite part of GRAW is the multiplayer because it is so super customizable.
I think that people would like the GRAW multiplayer more if it was exactly like the single player. From what we've seen of the single player, I think the cover system is already going to feel a bit rudimentary next to Gears of War and even Rainbow Six Vegas, which are already out, because it's very similar to how it worked in the first game.
They did discuss it, including it, and they ultimately decided it's too difficult, I guess, to make that GRAW's all about multiplayer options, making options, and that's too difficult to put in as an option.
I think that it has a lot more to do with their map design, personally. Maybe. Because there are just the pieces of random environment all over the place that you wouldn't be able to take cover on because they don't build things in bricks. There's circular objects and crash planes and that sort of thing. I don't think it would be easy to work cover into it. I think it's going to be fun. I don't know if I'm going to play it as much as some other multiplayer games that are already out because cover is cool. I like cover now.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to go check out the single player demo some more. Okay. Hopefully it's a bit improved from the preview stuff they were showing earlier.
Right on. Alright, check you later.
I have to make sure I have mail. That's important.
Hi there.
Hello.
I heard you got to play the Shivering Isles.
I did get to play Shivering Isles. I hear everybody in the office is jealous about that.
But this is huge, right?
Yeah,
this is like 30 hours.
Guys, forget what you know about downloadable content. This is totally not downloadable content. This is a real expansion pack, number one. And number two, it's not more of... I guess the first thing they told us was, hey, we know people want more of this, and we've been doing that with downloadable content, and what we didn't want to do with an expansion pack was just make more and more and more of what we've been doing. So we're going a totally different route. That's how they came up with this whole weird mental realm of dementia and mania.
Can you go into it pretty much virgin?
The whole world scale. So I mean, one of the things you might not like about Oblivion is that it scales, so you never have that feeling of I'm a super badass, I can beat the crap out of that rat. But at the same time, it means that like you can start a new character and go right into the expansion pack. So this Daedric Prince of Madness has this event every era called the Grey March, and he's decided, you know what, screw it, I don't really want to deal with the Grey March. I don't want my world to be wiped out. He comes upon this idea that the way to stop his realm from being wiped out is to have a human champion brought into his realm that will defend the realms. It's going to defend the realms from the Grey March and the destruction of madness. By going into a realm of madness, they're no longer anchored to giant gray castles and beautiful forests and all that kind of typical fantasy stuff. They can go completely batshit because it's crazy people, right?
Yeah, and like the screenshots I've seen are all like it's very Alice in Wonderland-y with like
really
big
alien
shrooms and and
Well, I don't know about
colorful.
Alice in Wonderland, if you're like taking American McGee's version, totally, yeah. I mean,
Sort of alien plants and like there's some really huge, I mean, very like architectural plants. I mean, there's things that are like building sized, weird things swaying, and like the lighting's very different. And everything's like purples and oranges and much more bright. It's not just grey castles and green grass.
So you start off and you're like in this purgatory of madness purgatory. It's this goofy. There's like this goofy clerk. His name's Haskell.
Have you made up your mind? The tension is almost palpable. Fine. I'm sure my lord will be most pleased, assuming you ever manage to see him. You'll want to pass through the gates of madness. Oh, and mind the gatekeeper. He dislikes strangers to the realm. Enjoy your stay.
He's like the Chamberlain to the Daedric Lord of Madness, and he tells you that if you want to get into the realm, you're going to have to get past the gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper is this giant, grotesque. You totally nailed it. He looks like that boss from Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
You could go fight him. Like, at the very first, you like, right when you walk into the town, they go up to the gate, and you watch him, like, just annihilate these 5 dudes in plate mail, which is kind of your clue. Yeah, you could fight him if you want to. You probably get your ass kicked, but if you want to fight him, you can. And from there, you start talking to people in town, and you learn, okay, there's some other ways you could go about this.
You kill him, but isn't there a thing where you can rebuild him?
Yeah, so through a series of quests, you eventually wind up with the sorceress in her laboratory creating the next keeper, which is pretty funny. It's like it's bizarre. You're in this slaughterhouse choosing, do I want the arm of mashing and smashing with this giant cudgel, or do I want the slice and dice arm with the super sword? And you build your own guy, and then you do this great ritual, which is pretty spectacular. There's pretty good special effects. You know, the sky turns purple, and there's lightning flashing, and you raise him up out of this pool, and there he is, my precious.
That's pretty much nerdgasms right there. And
You're like, I want to build a keeper.
I'm gonna build a monster, my own monster.
You think it's going to get people back into Oblivion?
Well, I think the thing that came across to me from playing this is how well they've learned to really have the narrative tie together. Because to me, you know, I stopped playing Oblivion, and I stopped playing Oblivion for the same reason I've always stopped Elder Scroll games, which is I get into them, I get going, I get distracted by some of the cool stuff you can fool around with in the world, And that's when I run out of gas and go, oh yeah, storyline, I don't remember. This actually pulls you into that more strongly because it's more dense, because there's
more of like a encapsulated experience.
Yeah, and it's all interwoven, It's like what's going on in the storyline is so tightly a part of the world that you're in, because it is the realm of madness and it's all tied together.
Did you guys see the PS3 version?
We did see the PS3 version.
That's a little strange because it's got the Knights of the Nine.
Right? Comes with the
and
Knights
it's
of the Nine.
Oblivion, but like no horse armor. I mean, as of now, it doesn't have horse armor. Doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have the Mihun's razor.
We've known all along that the two consoles have different architecture, right? It's a technical limitation. And the way the PS3's memory is architected, they just don't have enough memory to load every piece of downloadable content. So now imagine you bought all that stuff, you have all that art. Because they don't have enough memory, they'd have to be doing swaps or some kind of memory tricks, and they've tried it and the performance isn't there. So they hope to have some downloadable content. It's going to be like a pick and choose sort of thing where they're going to have to select, okay, well, we want these pieces because we think those are the best pieces to go in.
And so far, horse armor hasn't made the cut. Imagine that.
I'll tell you what has made the cut is because the machines are different. They had to redo the renderer completely. And if you guys, I'm sure know this really well. If you're watching the game, especially in the distance, there was always that weird like overlit glow effect, especially on like mountainsides and that kind of thing. So they've solved that because as they were redoing, they don't have multiple teams at Bethesda. They have like one group of coders. So they're working on the engine. They're redoing the renderer for PS3. One of the guys is like, you know what? I've been working on shaders a lot now. I think I have a way that we could like make the distance textures look a whole lot better. He came up with a new shader code, fixes that. Here's the cool part, because shader is like a unified part of architecture, 360 is going to get that fixed.
They've proven now that the limitations of Oblivion, they can scale out of that. There are enough ways that they can change the game that you're not going to come, well, I'd come back and I'd play it if they did something with the weapons, or if they did something with the way the game adapts. But it sounds like they've actually changed the rules to some extent, right?
I don't think they've changed the rules because it's still the core function of...
They've just added rules. It seems like they've added
Right.
elements. I don't know.
They've added to it. This is very much additive. Totally agree. I've never been a big fan of the Oblivion system of everything, like we were talking about earlier, leveling alongside, because I like to feel like that sense of accomplishment. But I think in this case of an expansion pack, it really plays in their favor because, like we were talking about, you could create a character, and yeah, you could go directly there. You're probably not going to go directly there, but what you can do is get the few things out of Cyrodiil that you want, and then go directly over and play the expansion pack. You're not going to have to grind through all of Oblivion again just to go play the expansion.
What's up, dude?
Saw you were blogging about this.
Red Defense Force?
Is this a Japanese one, or?
This is the Japanese one. We've got the
Yeah, I got the English one.
American one, but I like that that Japanese B-movie, that monster movie kind of vibe. Remember when the first game came out, and I wasn't really following the Simple 2000 series that much. Eventually I started to, just because I realized that, okay, well, the Simple 2000 series is just like a way for, smaller development teams just to come up with wacky ideas and just actually get them out there, which you can't do at a normal, traditional game publisher like Electronic Arts. They're not going to let somebody just make a goofy game, and I got it. I just couldn't believe like how many levels and all the different weapons you could get.
Yeah, we give you 150 plus weapons, 4 different vehicles, and we've got this really cool kind of team AI that we have built into this version of the game, which is kind of a new step to the series where these guys that surround you will be added to your squad if you approach them at the correct time.
We'll join you. We're the welcoming party. Let's show them how we do things around here. Fire!
You know what was disturbing about my blog though after I wrote about this game was that just some people just don't get it. Is it the young? I think it's like the B-movie charm of it. Like somebody was like, "Oh, it doesn't have a storyline." I'm like, giant ants are landing on your fucking city. That's your storyline. Does anybody ever criticize Tekken for not having a storyline? Right? Oh, looks like Heihachi wants to fight again. Storyline get.
Yeah, I'm not too crazy about the English voices. I usually shoot the little guys so they'll shut up.
Really?
Yeah.
Will they actually stop screaming if you shoot them?
Well, they scream a little bit, but then they, they're dead, so they stop.
Hang in there! We're saved! I'll join you!
These are the best looking red ants I've ever seen in a video game. I'm not lying.
They do look pretty good, especially when you get up close. You can kind of see the stuff that they did with the mandibles and stuff. They have lots of little geometry touches, and they use the normal mapping really well.
Yeah, Sandlot did a really good job. When the Simple 2000 versions on the PlayStation 2 were pretty nice, but the textures and everything on this. I mean, there's still kind of I'm not going to lie, there's still kind of a ghetto look to some of the things, but the textures, especially once the spaceships start coming out and like they fill up the entire screen, the bump mapping and all the lighting and all the effects, the graphics are at times really nice. Okay, so you guys changed the bug blood from what is ordinarily a very realistic red to a more German-friendly green, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for this was you wanted to get a lower ESRB rating.
The thing with the blood is that with the amount of stuff that we're throwing at you, sometimes the entire screen could be covered in blood. I mean, it's it could be pretty ridiculous, and so we wanted to really make sure that we avoided going into the adults-only sort of territory. I mean,
because only adults can handle screens filled with insect blood.
We just want to make sure, because the game is it's a very casual gamer friendly, that we want to make sure that kids.
So you wanted to make sure that, like, for whatever arcane, ridiculous, draconian reasons, that this game did actually make it into all the Walmarts and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're in it to win it.
Yes. Yes.
Did you actually finish it with her yet?
No, I can't bring myself to play this all the way through. I don't understand how Konami could make a 2D game look worse on Saturn than on PlayStation. That's some sort of dark alchemy at work.
That's the
satanic pacts.
The magic of KCE Nagoya.
Oh, Nagoya. Oh man, whatever. This is crap.
Come on, it's Maria on Saturn, dude.
I don't care. Like, Symphony of the Night is an awesome game, but a crappy version of Symphony of the Night it hurts more than just a crappy game on its own, you know? The terrible, terrible shoddy Saturn version. At least we have the comfort of knowing that they're not bringing that one to Xbox Live Arcade or to the PSP.
There is something coming for PSP. Something good. Something like that one. You know, a lot of people don't even know what Rondo of Blood is because it never came out in America in its full form.
Right. So think the Super NES Dracula X, except about 5 times more awesome.
It came out really late for Super Nintendo, and it was a remake of this, which was for the PC Engine CD, also like the TurboGrafx Duo here.
Would you call this the holy grail of Castlevania?
For me, it kind of is. Like, I do like Symphony of the Night a little bit better than Rondo of Blood, but in terms of pure action Castlevanias...
Well, they're both different kinds of games. Symphony of the Night is, you know, the big, expansive, open-ended game. Rondo of Blood basically took the classic Castlevania formula, which is level by level, and perfected it. And it's just every level is awesome, and not only that, but every level has 2 parts to it. So there's alternating paths, there's multiple characters, there's all kinds of crazy stuff you can do, and it just plays perfectly.
Most of the Symphony of the Night fans don't really understand where Maria came from, what, you know, Richter, the whole story. Like, you don't really know that.
A lot of Americans think that it's a sequel to Bloodlines, and even people who play Dracula X don't really have the full story, because in the Japanese version of Rondo, you could play as Maria. You had all the women you had to rescue, so there were multiple endings. There were many more stages. There were bosses that you didn't see in the Super NES game. The final encounter with Dracula was totally different, but still, it had a lot more depth in the Super NES version, and it provides a lot more context for Symphony, which I don't think a lot of Symphony fans are necessarily familiar with, because even if people know about this game, it's extremely expensive and incredibly hard to find.
The end of this game is the beginning of Symphony of the Night.
Right, so having them packaged together as like a cohesive whole sort of on PSP just kind of brings everything together.
Old school Castlevania fan, there's a lot of stuff in this that is drawn from earlier games, like a lot of the bosses, enemies, levels.
Well, yeah, the game begins in the town of Algebra or whatever. Yeah, but it's basically a Castlevania town burning,
right?
And that's all.
And this game is kind of like the bridge between the old school Castlevania gameplay and the modern. Like, the control isn't quite as loose and agile.
No, it's a pretty stiff game. You have very precise control, but it's definitely the most, I don't know, like, it feels the most intuitive of all the stiff Castlevanias.
Right, but if you are used to the night, when you first get your hands on this, you'll think, oh wow, this plays more like old Castlevania. But that
actually works pretty well for the PSP conversion, because it's being made in 3D, so you got polygonal graphics. The original game was actually very rigid, and from what I've played,
like it really
the
does.
PSP game, even though it's super early, like it totally gets the feel of the game down.
Right, and all the secrets where they're supposed to be. Like, if you having played that, it's like, wow, this feels immediately just like what it's supposed to feel like. Yeah, they were a little rough right now, but it looks like there's some in-engine cinemas before every boss.
Right.
Iga's not sure what they're doing with the other cinemas, because in the original version, they're kind of like anime style.
And it was basically just someone's mouth was animated.
Yeah, that was the style of the era. Right. Like, every PC Engine game had like animated mouth, maybe a hand. So I think now they're either going to go for like CG, full like anime style, or maybe a remake of like these little dioramas more. I don't know. We'll see. I asked if they were going to make Rondo any easier, and Iga's like, no, I'm not making it easier. I don't want to dumb this game down.
Well, that's good, because the level-by-level Castlevanias just aren't any fun if you can cakewalk through them.
Yeah, and this one actually gets pretty hard.
I like the fact that the character artist for Symphony of the Night, Ayami Kojima, has gone back and reimagined Richter, so he's no longer this like anime-looking dude, but he actually looks like Richter from Symphony of the Night, but he has this really cool, almost looks like a red coat uniform on. It's a long coat. It has like bandoliers across. She redesigned Maria also, so she no longer looks like a little 8-year-old.
I really
She's
like what
actually
she did
12.
with Maria. She looks like a little older and a little more like from the time
She
period.
looks like a young woman.
Yeah, but her clothing is also a little more from like
it's
the
not
time.
like frumpy Sunday dress. The game still has 7 or 8 months before it's ready to be published.
We played through 4 levels.
Right.
Well,
2 levels plus their alternate
the prime levels.
stages.
Yeah, and they were like spot on. And actually, the second levels were a little more different than the first. Like from what Ika tells me, is the beginning of the game, he's keeping it very straight to the original. But as you progress, like they are adding parts to the levels that will surprise people who have played the original.
That'll be cool.
Symphony of the Night's another question mark. You really wouldn't answer a lot of questions about that, but I think there will be new things.
Right, but they're not doing a 3D remake of Symphony. It's still going to be the 2D game, but
it will be reformatted.
Right, so it'll be 470 by 272 or whatever.
Unlike the Xbox Live Arcade version, this version will have a new translation and new voices.
No more "Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!" I'm looking forward to the Xbox Live Arcade version just because, it'll be nice, but this is definitely the one that Castlevania fans will want to wait for.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't played Rondo...
The 2 games remastered and remade on the same disc. Like, just Rondo of Blood alone would be worth it, because otherwise the game's $150.
And you can unlock the original game on the PSP version, so...
Right, I think that's a nice touch, because that's something people want to see, is the original 2D game, because it had really nice graphics for the PC engine.
I'm getting excited about this game.
Yeah, only, half a year to wait?
Half a year to wait.
I guess I'll get back to the Saturn version and...
Yeah, let me know if you finally beat it with... If you beat it with Maria, let me know, because I never could push myself through that,
Alright.
So is it like Gap, Macy's?
Sears.
Sears, nice. Okay, I got it.
Once a year, stock up.
All right, good.
You're set.
All right, because I got the khakis, I got the button up.
Aha! Yes, God of War 2 demo. We get it in. I don't hear about it. I just find Matt Leone playing.
You don't hear about it. You've played it.
All right, you got me.
Okay.
By defeating Ares, Kratos, the once mortal warrior, became the new god of war. However, Kratos soon found himself alone on Olympus, shunned by his fellow gods.
So I actually went back and played God of War 1 a little bit after playing this, and this seems like you liked God of War 1. We're not gonna mess with the formula. We're just gonna make it like much slicker, more of like the stuff that you liked from God of War 1.
So for me, even playing this, it kind of proves at least they didn't fuck it up. The fact that David Jaffe isn't maybe as involved anymore, like at least they know that like Corey and the rest of the guys working on this game like didn't really screw it up. It got me excited to play God of War 2.
And I'm sure they got a lot of feedback from God of War 1 that they really loved the parts, with Ares all stomping around, like the sense of scale, the just epic sense of scale to it. And throughout this entire demo, you have just this huge fucking like Colossus statue smashing things and stepping on you and bouncing around, and just when it's in the background, it adds a lot.
But I think it gives everybody a taste of like what they expected. They promised more boss fights. They're kind of showing a little bit of what bosses are going to be like. There's going to be some puzzle elements, but it's going to be kind of like, it's not going to just be like one puzzle and then you kind of go from stage one to kind of get wrapped up into the whole level that you're in. When I interviewed Corey, he said that how he just didn't want you to just be locked in a room and try to figure out. He wanted to kind of integrate the exploration in the puzzle.
You can tell too, like not just from this demo, but from all the footage they've released, it seems like there's going to be a lot more boss fights. Like that was a sore spot with some people about the last game.
Yeah, they definitely have more boss fights, but I just hope they're all as good. Because I mean, the reason people wanted so many more is because of how good they were.
Right.
Like, sure, there were only like 3 real boss fights in the game, but they were all like these huge epic things. And I would rather have that than 6 kind of like mid-level bosses personally.
I just hope it's not like the final boss fight that kind of stunk.
Yeah, I mean, people give a lot of shit to the final boss fight, but then the scene right before that with like the mini Kratoses, that's like the best scene ever in the game.
Exactly. But I don't need to be fighting. I don't need to turn into War of the Monsters or whatever. I don't need that again.
Speaking of which, like this is something like me and Ryan talked about. At the beginning, at the very beginning of this demo, when Kratos like falls down from heaven and he's still huge.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if that's teasing something where like later in the game you are going to be that like.
No, I hope that's the only time you're like.
What are you?
Why?
What are
you
talking
because
about?
Because the whole part of God of War is like feeling like a badass and kind of doing all these great moves. But as soon as you grow big, you don't have those cool moves anymore. You're just like slashing, very slash. Well, if you've never finished God of War, so you probably don't even know what we're talking about.
No, that's right. That's right. I think the first God of War is a really good game, not a 9.5 or whatever you gave it. Yeah, and it's definitely not a 10. I think it's an overrated but like really fun, solid like action game. Like, it's super easy to do combos, and that's the same thing in God of War 2. Like, you can just sit there and button mash, and your guy ends up doing all these really cool, incredible combos, grabbing them in midair, throwing them down, and stuff like that. You don't even necessarily have to be like thinking of exactly what you want to be doing. Like a hardcore fighting game.
When I was talking to Corey, he did talk about how they're trying to give you some more depth to, like, for the advanced guys, kind of give them like a little bit of an edge going. If you kind of figure this stuff out, where it definitely gets more complex. Necessarily, I don't think there's anything wrong with making it a little bit easier. I mean, for me, I kind of like the fact that I can kind of pick up and play and kind of do these cool things.
It's definitely not a knock against it at all.
For me, even beyond that, I think what appeals to me for God of War is the story. I mean, I definitely like the Kratos character.
See, now at least the story, what we've seen of it so far, like I think I played the demo 3 times. I'm still not sure, like, why is he fighting again now? It's like, I don't know, he's kind of bored up in.
No, he basically because they screwed him. Yeah, they basically all the other gods have kind of screwed him.
How? He's small. He was big. Now he wants to get big again, basically.
Athena! You conspire against me!
Basically, he's still tormented by all these things he did when he was a human. And he wants to kind of, that's the whole setup for this game, is that he wants to kind of get rid of that. He wants to forget.
The story for me is not the reason to play God of War. It's like, there's a bunch of Pegasus and crap. Let's get smashing stuff.
It was kind of interesting to me how in the first game, like when you had the first demo, a big part of it was the whole like block pushing puzzle where everyone's shooting those arrows at you and you had to kind of figure it out. So far, there have been 2 demos of God of War 2, and there are very few puzzles. I mean, like, yeah, you have to push the block and like through the gate and then roll after it. But that's super easy. That's nothing that takes much time. So
I have to say, coming off of playing Zelda, being able to grab a box and move it in any direction is so fucking nice. It's like, thank God. And then even being able to kick it, it's like, I don't have to fucking stop, walk over here, Resident Evil style, push it this way, do that. It's a little thing, but man, I definitely like appreciate some of those little things. Kind of pissed before that it was like, why isn't God of War just going to the PS3? Like, I really wanted it to go on the PS3. Seeing this and playing it actually like kind of like soothes that concern. Like, it looks really good. It looks good enough that I'm playing almost all next gen games now. I haven't played a PS2 game since I started, Final Fantasy 12 a little bit a few months ago, but this looks good enough that it doesn't bother me that it's on like last gen.
Yeah, I mean, I played it through and I got me really excited to play through the game. I didn't really care that it was next gen, but at the same time, like, thinking what they're doing at the end of the PS2 cycle, just thinking about what God of War 3 will be like.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, got some more training sessions with your little Korean buddies tonight, Milky? Think you're ready, Milky?
Ready for what?
This. Virtua Fighter 5.
I've been ready for the last 4 years.
I haven't even shown you my best character.
You have suddenly mastered another character after all these years?
Maybe I have. Maybe I've only shown you what I want you to know. Maybe your false sense of security, that's gonna be your undoing.
Really?
I'm hungry. I want to win. Punch, 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 kick. Pie's been doing that for a decade. Nothing new. Nothing to say? Cat got your tongue? Your mind games aren't gonna screw with me, man. You're nothing. I'm going down.
I didn't want to have to tell you this, Shane. My abilities come from a celestial plane. I have the heavens on my side. God is my armor.
Looking ready to get sent to hell. You're going down. I'm not scared of you. You're scared of me.